I'm joined now on set by Clovis Casali, a reporter here at France 24. Strong words there coming from Emmanuel Macron. Do we know what he meant by them exactly?
Well, a lot of the French press reacted straight away saying, does this mean France is actually going to war against Hamas? And interesting to see that the Elysee sent us a message a few minutes after this statement when President Macron was with Netanyahu, saying that France is not necessarily going to intervene. The idea more is to support Israel in any possible way, to draw from the experience of the anti-Islamic State coalition, which is made up of dozens of countries, not Israel, to provide assistance or help depending on what Israel needs and wants. Doesn't necessarily mean boots on the ground, but it can mean, for instance, training forces like in Iraq, or cracking down on the financing of terrorist movements, or sharing intelligence. France clearly showing full support for Israel with this trip. That's what the Elysee has been telling us anyway, that President Macron wants to send a strong message, loud and clear, because for the French leader, Israel suffering a terrorist attack from the Hamas is like France suffering a terrorist attack from ISIS back in 2015. France and Israel having to deal with the same kind of jihadist threats, and therefore President Macron believes that Hamas is just as bad as the Islamic State, just as bad as Al-Qaeda, and that's why he wants this international coalition to at least help Israel. Israel is not alone in fighting terrorists. Worth mentioning, of course, that France has been drawing the distinction between Palestinians and Hamas. Prime Minister Bon did it yesterday, and the Elysee repeats that, of course, Hamas is not equal to Palestinian civilians, and that Israel needs to spare civilian life.
Well, also on this note, France has a lot of kind of dual citizens, French-Israeli citizens, a number of them who are held hostage currently by Hamas.
Indeed, and it's a prime issue, of course, with this visit for President Emmanuel Macron. One of the most important tasks, if you will, is to free these hostages, to have negotiations. The Elysee tells us it never pays for in order to free hostages. Instead, it tries to work with regional partners who might have some influence in order to bring about this happy ending, if you will, for the hostages. And for France, it's about negotiating. It's also about asking Israel for a humanitarian truce in order to bring a much-needed aid to civilians in Gaza, and also in order to have that time to negotiate and have hostages freed, because when Israel will be carrying out its ground offensive in Gaza,
those hostages will be at risk.
They will be at risk, and it will be a real issue. One last word, maybe. France has the largest Jewish as well as the largest Muslim community here out of Europe, and therefore France is extremely worried that the conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas might spill over. We've seen demonstrations here in France.
Some of them were banned. The pro-Palestinian ones were banned,
in fact.
Until
last Thursday. First one was last minute authorized, and then there was a main one in Paris, for instance, with up to 15,000 people, I believe, at least 10,000 on the streets of the French capital demonstrating, and we were covering it, of course, for France 24, that pro-Palestinian demonstration. And in France, there is a lot of debate in society and also in the political world, with some politicians, especially radical left leaders, such as Jean-Luc Mélenchon, saying that France is showing too much solidarity, too much support for Israelis, and not enough for Palestinian casualties, civilians. And that's why it's interesting also that President Macron is going very soon to Ramallah to meet with Mahmoud Abbas.
Right, later this Tuesday.
And tomorrow he'll be in Amman speaking with the King of Jordan and other regional leaders. The idea, of course, here is again to try to bring about peace at some point.